Formula One, the greatest competition. Cars designed and engineered by the brightest minds, driven to the edge and beyond by the world's chosen few. Teams rise and fall, drivers come and go, but echoes of the past always remain. Competing in arenas that have stood the test of time, where glory and failure are separated by fractions, where victories are rescued from the jaws of defeat. This is where history is made. This is Formula One.
Really, this year it's 2 weeks later than what we would normally be because of the classic content. It's taken that long to have the confidence that we can deliver it all and get it all signed off in time for the game's release. I mean, we're literally not even there yet. We're 8 weeks to launch and we've still got a couple of bits and pieces to get over the line. Also, because you've got to build the modern stuff as they appeared in the first race of the season, which is mid-March at Melbourne, from that period, the time it takes to create the models to the level of detail that they are and get them all signed off in terms of sponsors, that takes you through into July, August, which is kind of the earliest you can do it. I think next year is going to be a challenge as well because the teams will be a little bit more secretive with their cars because the rules are changing that much. But certainly, as soon as we can, we would like to try and bring it back a week, year on year. I mean, I think it will be unrealistic to bring it in too early in the season just because this window is never going to shorten down that much. But the point that we are at today, like with Spa, kind of first practice today, that's an achievable goal, I think, over the next few years that we can perhaps look to come in on. I mean, there are benefits of it as well. I mean, you wouldn't realise that McLaren would be struggling as much as they were if you released the game really early, so that you need to let sort of 6, 7, 8 races go past before you can begin to really balance the field, the tyres as well, you know, the wear rates that we saw in Silverstone. The story arc of F1 changes quite a lot, so there's kind of sort of two angles of it, but obviously releasing earlier would be better for us, and we would love to kind of get away from the Call of Duty, FIFA window as well, and come a little bit earlier in the season. Yeah, I mean, definitely not in terms of the start of the season for us. We're taking the technology that for next gen seriously. We're looking at the moment as a company, but we think that we would like to do some significant work to our own physics engine, to our own rendering engine, to really push our leap onto next gen as a kind of really big step. You know, looking at 60 frames a second, looking at much better simulation physics, looking at much improved graphics, and really looking at the sort of extra tools that both of the consoles offer, and that's going to take the same sort of run-up that we were looked at when we were, you know, we signed the Formula 1 license in 2008, but we didn't release our first game until 2010, and I think we need that sort of window again to really do the next generation of consoles justice. Probably not really in terms of the size of the data that you'd be looking at to do certain things, and the career model's really quite complex, and it would kind of ruin people's save games, and we've kind of looked at that before, whether we could just kind of do a sort of small patch season update year on year as well as doing a major iteration every couple of years. It would require quite a lot of infrastructure work from our side, so no plans at the moment, but discussions are kind of taking place on the technical feasibility of it. A gamer's point of view, I can understand that completely, but really it's about the cost of it. You know, the license is expensive as it is, and that doesn't include any additional content at all. So as soon as you start to factor in 11 classic cars, 4 classic circuits, and 17 classic drivers, then those costs are really high. And then adding on to that the additional development work you need to do all the car handling across the board. So really that's the kind of, you know, the costs have to be kind of shared across the way. And you know, if we want classics to be a staple going forward, then really it kind of needs to fund itself a little bit to some degree. Otherwise, you know, there's sort of no chance of doing a classic game on its own right and trying to go that way, because the kind of license doesn't work that way. The Formula 1 license is for a very specific season. Now that's, like I say, it's been about 2 years in terms of trying to license things, and about 6 months ago was kind of the point in the sand where we had to really make some difficult decisions. And there were some complications with Senna. There's a Brazilian PC developer that are doing a game based on him, so trying to clear the rights, it just took longer than it would have done for other drivers. At the same time, McLaren's kind of tied up their cars into another game as well, so kind of one without the other was a bit of a big risk for us. And we also, you know, recognised that he's a global superstar, and F1 Classics for us was this year's the first year that we've really been able to do it justice. With the 10 world champions that are in there, the great drivers. We would very much like to do more classic stuff in the future, and I think the name of Senna, if you could get other elements too, would justify a game mode on its own. So, hopefully in the future. The biggest difference is probably the 1980 Williams compared to the top end car in that pack would be the 1988 Ferrari. I mean that's quite a big difference. But the fun, really, there's so much time to be gained and lost with the classic stuff, just on wheel spin and correcting the cars out of corners and keeping the car pointing the right way. F1 was difficult back in the day in terms of manhandling these cars. We do certain things with grids in terms of, one of the scenarios, for example, is you're in second position in the 1980 Williams and you've got to keep everyone behind. Your teammate's kind of doing a job defending you for a little bit, but as soon as one of the drivers breaks rank, you know that they're in a better car than you, so it's kind of, can you hold on? And we think those elements are kind of really cool. And the way that we balance races as well in the studio, obviously for the 2013 component, you can go proper car handling in terms of, the Lotus is easier on its tyres, the Mercedes is faster, or you can equalise the cars online. With classics, we kind of just divvy it up a little bit. It was impossible to do that for the classic component of the game. So you do it with driver skill. The better drivers in the studio, kind of, you stick them in the slower cars, and then it kind of evens out that way. We're still looking at the damage obviously on modern it's as it was last year, perhaps slightly more easier to clip wings. With modern with classics it was much more of a difficult decision, because wing changes back in the pit stops are already like 2 or 3 times as long, but wing changes back in the day are upwards of a minute on the ones that do come off, and the damage model that we apply to the current cars don't apply across all the classic cars. So we're toying around with some level of damage, but at the end of the day it won't be enough to kind of lose your nose cone, just because we can't do that across all the classic cars. I'm Paul Jeal, I'm the game director on F1 2013. Look forward to you guys playing it this year, especially with the mid-session save. More of you to experience 100% races, and look forward to seeing your videos.